who will be sharing their experiences with them. And I think, first of all, so the setting of the plan of today's seminar is the first half an hour. I will try to give you a brief presentation of the things that I'd like to share with these would-be college students. And the rest of the time, I will leave it to the five of them, for them to share with you one by one what they have gone through, what are their experiences, and what motivated them, and what they did, or what stress that they went through. Okay, because stress is an essential and inevitable part of human life. Okay, so with that, I would like to officially start today's presentation, and I hope that we can. But I guess we should let everybody know who will be our speakers. So the first speakers, I will let them introduce themselves and let them tell you what schools they are going to. Okay.
Hi, so my name is Caitlin Zhao, and I go to Westlake High School, and I'm going to be attending Stanford in the fall.
Hi, I'm Emery Huang. I also go to Westlake High School, and I'm going to be attending Claremont Mechanic College.
Hi, I'm Matthew Xu. I go to Westlake, and I'll be going to UC Berkeley.
Hi, my name is Maya Gautam. I go to Newbury Park High School, and I'll be going to Duke University in the fall.
Hello, my name is Richard Chu. I am currently a senior at Newbury Park High School, and I plan to attend Princeton University in the fall.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now allow me to share with you one more video clip before we start our presentation. So please listen to.
The rest of the world wears bifocals.
Paul Newman, over the years, has really come to embody a wonderful notion of what we want a man to be. He has that primitive masculine energy, but he has transmuted it into something very noble and very wonderful.
He's a totally unpretentious person. He's not seemingly in it for himself, and he is very generous. It's fun to work with him. He's a real human being.
Well, I hope you have heard the last sentence that was said by the actress who played the role with Paul Newman. I mentioned to you that I like Paul Newman. He has been one of my favorite movies. But how nice it is that when he passed away, when his friends, colleagues, people recall Paul Newman, the most emphatic sentence turns out to be, he's a real human being. I wish someone would be able to do that to me, but I'm not quite sure. Okay. So that pretty much is the key message I would like to share with everybody. And I mentioned earlier that I have some messages that I want to share with these five would-be college students. To sum it up, I can use only two words to finish what I want to say. And those two words are, be good. Meaning, be a good human being. Done. Well, that's my grandson likes to say. When he's done with everything, he just simply say, done. Okay, but well, of course, I cannot just say to the five of them and say, be good, and then be done there. So I would like to elaborate a little bit, but the key theme is already there, which is what? To be a real human being. And since I'm only a teacher, I can only do what the teachers can do. So I'd like to share the subtitle. The title of this presentation is called Tomorrow's Leaders. And truly, honestly, these are the leaders of tomorrow. They will make decisions about how the world, the society should and will run. They are going to be the policy makers. They will be hosting, they will be having families, they will be raising kids, They will be deciding their temperament, their intellect, their spirituality is going to determine the life of the next generation. And how important that is. When I decided on the subtitle, look forward and look backwards. What I mean is look forward for those who be college students. They are looking forward to their 4 years of college or whatever years. Looking backwards means what? They turn around and look at the past several years of high schools and then try to share their experiences with the younger ones. The same experience, when seen by the younger students, is actually not looking backwards, it's looking forward. So in a way, looking forward is the same as looking backward. Because when I say that word, I want them to share with their my view about the way they can look forward to their future. I am really looking backward at my own life, college life. So it's a backward, two-way thing. Since becoming a real human being, as people speak of Paul Newman, is the main theme of the message I want to talk about. I just made this one this morning, actually. It's a newly added. Okay, so I want to highlight that one. Your education, the blue part, is what you are focusing on. Your education is leading towards what? Your future career, and that's what you are heading for. But your education, or our education, should be rooted in culture, whatever culture that is. If you live in the United States, it should be American culture. If you happen to be a Chinese, or Irish, or Indian, or whatever, it should be Chinese culture, also Indian culture, Irish culture, or well, Italian culture. But deeper down, beneath culture should be something called wisdom. And I'll try to give a simple definition of what wisdom is. But even deeper than wisdom should be something that's called virtue. What does virtue mean? Virtue means conduct, means the way that we behave. Okay, I happen to be a big fan of 19th century scholar Matthew Arnold. Okay, so I went to him and tried to see how does he look at what is wisdom? Wisdom, according to him, is what? It's a normal, natural state of man. It should be wisdom. But wisdom is nothing more than the vision of things as they are. Okay, the vision of the cosmos as it is in the light of reason. And wisdom is also nothing more than the mode of being and living that should correspond to this vision. Okay, whatever that means, we'll come to it later. Okay, because it doesn't necessarily mean that we need to grasp what he says. But I thought it's a definition that's quite interesting. So now I also like to share with you. I'm sure everybody, all American students, know about Ralph Waldo Emerson. Now, whether you are a transcendentalist or not, it's not important. But Emerson lived in the 19th century, a time when the world was going through even larger transformation than we in the 20th or the 21st century could ever imagine. We tend to think that we are living in a time when the world is changing so greatly and rapidly, and we tend to forget that even in the 19th century or the 18th century, the world went through something no smaller change than what we are experiencing. Okay, so I'd like to share with a few lines of Emerson's points, and this is important. There are two laws discrete, not reconciled. Law for man and law for a thing. The last builds tall and fleet, but he runs wild and doth the man and king. Now in a different poem, he also mentioned, Things are in a saddle and ride mankind. Now, if you happen to be deepened in history or you are interested in history, you will know that what? The Western civilization, how it went through, starting from the ancient time and going through the Middle Ages, the Roman Empire, the, the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, and the discovery of the modern science, and the development of technology, and all of this here. We went from history to the present day, and we are now in our current modern mode of thinking. And what is the modern mode of thinking? The modern mode of thinking is science. Okay. About the teacher's job, since I'm a teacher, this is what, and you are students. So I'd like to share with you what is the general understanding of a student going to school. You learn from the teacher, and what are the teachers doing? This is a general notion of what the teachers ought to be doing. The teacher's job is to prepare students for the real world. Otherwise, you're going to be good for nothing. And you will become dependent on other people. So it's crucial, it's important, yes, indeed. But the other thing is also to discover their interests, the students' interests and ideas on their own. This is also a modern temperament. The students will take ownership of their assignments, things, and there's a lot more to say about this part, but it reflected in the way higher education, secondary education, and preliminary education is designed. The basic understanding is a perpetual expansion in pursuit of knowledge, experiences, exploitation, innovation, creativity, happiness, whatever, that is deemed something very positive in modern world. So, the modern mind is imbued with a spirit that's pretty much like this. Work and wealth are valued as the end goal of life's pursuit. If you pursue wealth, if you're successful in making a lot of money, and you're good, your life is successful. The second one is the so-called aristocratic standard as well gave way to democratic criterion. Well, as to what is an aristocratic standard, it's something that's usually higher than the birth population, something held to be human aspirations, gave way to democratic criteria, meaning that, okay, well now it's what you vote with your hands, the majority dominates. Quantity is trumping quality. So this is the world that we are living in. And basically, modern mind is what? Is a mentality that worships what? Power and technology. All this is good, essential in developing the strength of the power of a country, the power of the strength of economy. But there is one thing that's missing, and that's the missing part that I would like to share with the students. And that is what? One's own inner world is missing. What do you mean by inner world? Your inner reflection, your inner workings, your inner cultivation, your inner development, your inner growth, spiritually, mentally, intellectually. That part is usually missing. But what is taking place of that missing part? Activities, things outside of a person's life. You go to here and there and do this and that activities. Okay. But preparation for life means more than career preparation. We also need to become an authentic human being, capable of telling the truth, willing to do what is genuinely good, and able to recognize the beautiful, and grow richer in wisdom, and will become more at home in our relationships, and eventually become truly who we are. Okay, since I'm a teacher and I should focus on sharing with you my understanding of the main curriculum that is usually practiced in this country in the past century. And by sharing this very brief outline with you, I hope to bring to your attention to number 4. Okay, so number 1 is the so-called child study movement. Basically, the school of thought goes this way, that child is the center of everything that we do related to education. The development, the interest, the temperament, the inclinations, the interest, the curiosity, everything is focused on looking at the child. And you want to do everything you can to foster and to promote the growth for the child. The second school of thought is the so-called social efficiency, which is mainly as a result of people like Dr. John Dewey. And what is Dewey's vision? Dewey's vision is what? Well, in the modern society, we need a lot of efficient members in the society. In order for us to have as many efficient members of society, the education should be focusing on whatever that can be done to make an efficient society. So the curriculum, the courses, whatever is focused on turning the students into a very efficient member of the larger society's social structure. The third one is called social ameliorism. Now, you have seen how communism developed more than 100 years ago and how it affected the whole world. Basically, this school of thought is what? There are social evils, and the purpose of education is to correct the social evil. All look very good. And then there's one more, which is called the humanist tradition. Now, those are the guardians of an ancient tradition tied to the power of reason and the finest element of the Western cultural heritage. Okay, well, we are not going to discuss deep into all these 4 things, but my purpose is for you to share the next slide. The next slide tells you that if you look at the different curriculum design, from a times perspective, you will find that the first 3 all focus on the present and the future, all looking optimistically to a bright future, the progress, the future development of our society, with relative disregard for the past. On the other hand, the 4th one, which is also known as classical education, practiced by many homeschool teachers, looks to the past, lives in the present, and hopefully you're looking to the future. Okay. I would like to also share with you the so-called humanitarian. Humanitarian, well, humanitas, the word, it came from Latin, okay, humanitas. It has long been incorrectly used to denote the promiscuous benevolence, a sentimental philanthropy. Okay, I'll explain what sentimental means later, very soon. And not democratic, but okay, its true application is, however, doctrine and discipline, aristocratic and not democratic in its application. Such misconception tends to mistake love for all other duties and virtues, meaning, well, if you have love for mankind, you're all good. If you have a very general, all-encompassing life for community, for mankind, you're all good in terms of your personal virtue. The idea is associated with the modern notion of progress. For the benefit and of the future of societal development, we need to embrace and love all mankind. Well, a person who has sympathy for mankind in a lump, faith in its future progress, a desire to serve the great cause of this progress, is called not humanist. but a humanitarian, and whose creed may be designated as humanitarianism. So what is that? The humanitarian lays stress almost solely upon the breadth of knowledge and sympathy when he would clasp the millions to his bosom and bestow a kiss upon the whole world. This kind of mindset, we call it as a sentimental romanticism. What do I mean? A person could claim that, well, I am in love with mankind, but I don't get along with my brother. Let's forget about getting along with my brother. I love mankind. I am a good person. I have such all-encompassing big love for mankind. How could it be that I'm not a good person, but I'm mean to my brother? And I disregard it. Now, today's higher education is really a specialist education. And it has to be a specialist education. We have no way out. Okay, so what is a specialist education? The specialist education is basically based on two understanding. The first one is what? The scientific humanitarianism. The other one is romantic what? Humanitarianism. Collaborate to produce what? Specialists. Okay, the utilitarian scientific humanitarianism allows each individual to develop by his originality freely and follow his main bent. Good, very attractive for the individual. But then the sentimental humanitarianism utilizes this main bent of individual to make of him a specialized cogwheel in the machinery of progress. You may not quite get what I'm trying to get at. But I can cite two persons that everybody should know or should have known. The first one is the French philosopher and writer, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Jean-Jacques Rousseau really powerfully changed the whole world. His idea that human beings are born pure, good, and will remain so is really affecting the world's view of how we should educate our children. What is the problem with seeing every child as being pure and good and full of innocence? It tends to neglect the fact that we humans, in order to be good by default or by effort, to assume that we are good by default runs the risk of becoming evil without our even acknowledging that we are evil. Because we are good, how could we be evil? So we became blind to the fact that we are evil, or we are liable to be evil. Okay, so that's it. The other person is Sir Francis Bacon. What has Bacon taught us, or his tremendous contribution to mankind, is the development of a scientific method with which you get set out to analyze, study, and eventually control the world. These two main mindset is underlying modern technology in the Western world. Okay, so we live in a world of science and technology. So what about science role? Science is the best way to eliminate the laws or patterns and regularities, but we tend to forget because science is so powerful, meaning children, young and old, they grow up believing the immense power of science. But we need to remind our students that it is not the best way to investigate human dilemmas, aberrant phenomena, or erratic occurrences. The humanities, meaning literature, philosophy, the arts, and aesthetics, will expose us to what science cannot control. Now here is my other message. While you are on your way to becoming a specialist, please do remember that there is another aspect of you that awaits to be developed, which is your humanity. To become a humanist means what? Embraces what? Discipline and selective sympathy. Now what do I mean selective sympathy? Not sympathy for mankind in such a broad and romantic sentiment. As a result of democratic notion in our world, sympathy without selection becomes flabby, and a selection which is unsympathetic tends to grow disdainful. The humanist then is interested in perfecting himself rather than the schemes for the elevation of mankind as a whole. Okay, in other words, while we set our goal and aspire to improve the world, we tend to forget that the first thing we want to do is to improve ourselves. We cannot spend all our time busying ourselves to improve other people and forgetting to improve ourselves, as if that's the least important thing to do, when in reality it should be the first thing that we do, which is to improve ourselves, to become a real and genuine human being, before we can go out and save the world. Although he allowed for sympathy, he insists that it be disciplined and tempered by judgment. Again, I'd like to share this with you. First one, everything starts from virtue, without which nothing will stand, actually. Virtue will eventually lead you to wisdom. Wisdom should be rooted in what? Culture. And your education should be closely connected to culture. And hopefully, it will help you to develop your career and you become a useful member of society. So, let's take a look at liberal arts. An education that ignores the wisdom of our ancestors in exchange for the new educational fad of the day is symptomatic of a culture which worships anything that's new. Okay. It should not be an obsession with material wealth to the neglect of more spiritual and educational concerns. We are talking to young students. We are not talking to adults. For the young students, they deserve to get the deepest message that they can get instead of the shallow, superficial message. Okay, so what does a liberal arts tradition do? A liberal arts, the goal was what? An ethical one. Now, again, not a scientific, not a utilitarian, not a materialistic, not a commercial one, but an ethical one. The formation of the virtues of self-control and prudence. Self-control. We cannot pick up the mental habit of blaming anything outside ourselves when things don't work out. We blame our friends, we blame our family members, we blame the society, we blame the institute, we blame whatever that's outside, external to us, but we never look inside and develop self-control and prudence. The method was the reading and emulation of a relatively fixed canon of literary classics. Okay. In today's world, it's extremely difficult to suggest and advise our young students to say, read classics. The response would likely be, what's the use of classics? Does it allow me to program the next robot? By no means do I mean that you should not learn to program a robot. You should. You should help to develop artificial intelligence. You should help to develop the next space shuttle. You should help to develop move forward the scientific frontier in whichever field that happens to catch your fancy and imagination. But it doesn't mean that we should turn our back on classics. An idea and order that synthesize with elements on both democracy, which is the main theme of today's world, and aristocracy, which means selectivity and restraint. And here is another message that I like to share with the 5 students here, especially, and everybody else here. The so-called natural aristocracy, for those of you who are going to, is understood by Thomas Jefferson. In fact, this is not an invention of Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson got it from Edmund Burke. Who knows what Edmund Burke got it from? Probably what? Sometime in the ancient world. Those persons, now this is not democratic at all, whose nature had endowed with genius and virtue, should be rendered by liberal education worthy to receive and able to guard the sacred deposit of the rights of their fellow citizens, and should be called to that charge without regard to wealth, birth, or the accidental condition or circumstance. But it is never an egalitarian equality as the temperament of today's world tends to harbor. Now, what is natural aristocracy? Well, it's something that's in contrast to the so-called very hated inherited aristocracy, which is the past mode of aristocracy. Natural aristocracy. If you are of a good breed, if you are of a good stock, you develop to be an outstanding, virtuous, intelligent, bright, good human being. You are an aristocrat. And you have no shame of admitting that. So the use of liberal arts aims at deepening the student's own personhood in various ways. It invites students to discover the intrinsic value of life, both his or her own life or the life of others. And then it reaches out to many fields so that the students are no longer to others, stranger to others, are no stranger to others when confronted by them. Meaning what? You are able to understand and permeate what? The human world. Okay, you are not a narrow specialist, familiar with and only comfortable with your own world. You are able to communicate with the rest of the world, whoever they are. And exposes the students to the great insights and achievement of those who came before them. Okay, so I have to seek to end this one quickly, but basically the purpose of the aims of college education is quite rich. And you want to it's a life of guided reflection. And it's the basis of all practicality where you begin to develop. And your career choice, your mating, your individual taste is also developed in the next 4 years, which is very crucial. Eventually, you develop an educated mind, and that should be the aims of your college education. So I think here I want to end my sharing with all of you, and I hope I want to give the talk to the 5 students here, whoever wants to take over.